Hello, kitties. Hello, kitties, and welcome back to this Bahamian Gyal, your ultimate guide to the Bahamas and Washington, D.C. What's poppin'? In today's episode, it's going to be a showdown between Washington, D.C. and Virginia. So, quick question. How many of you have gotten a great job offer to move to the area, are thinking about coming here for university, wanting just a change in life, or are moving here to be with family? Well, if that's the case and you're looking for a place to stay, you might be considering DC heavily, but did you know that there are other places in the area that you could consider? This is not to discourage you from living in DC. I love DC, but I'm just letting you know that there are other states in the area that you could move to. And a lot of people who move here end up working in Virginia or working in Maryland and living in DC or vice versa. So in today's video, I'm going to be giving you the pros and cons, breaking down why you might want to live in DC versus someplace else. Now, I didn't stack DC up against Maryland and Virginia because it would have been overwhelming, and I do believe that DC versus Maryland requires its own video, so you're going to get that next week. So while I live in Washington, DC, the majority of my time, 85% of my time is spent in Virginia. I work in Virginia. Most of my friends live in Virginia. I go there for all of my doctor visits, my dentist. Everybody is in Virginia, and I'm going to tell you the reason why. All of that is coming up. All right, let's get it. So in this video, I'm going to be covering a few important topics. Hold on one second. So in this video, I'm going to be covering a few important factors that I think you really need to consider when relocating to the DMV area. And again, we're only talking about the District of Columbia, DC, and Virginia today. These are things you need to seriously consider because your quality of life is going to be impacted severely if you don't give consideration to the things I'm going to say. So let's get it. So first off, let's talk about taxes. If you're going to be moving to the DC area, please know that income taxes are going to be higher than in Virginia. Property taxes, however, are lower than in Virginia. So your property tax is going to be lower here in DC and higher in Virginia. Your income tax is going to be higher in DC versus Virginia. One of the things that was like a big shock for me when I was apartment hunting and I was thinking very seriously about moving to Virginia is the fact that I didn't know that Virginia had personal property taxes.
Damn.
So what does that mean? You're going to be paying taxes on your cars. Each vehicle that you own, you're going to be paying personal property taxes on them.
What?
So yes, the income taxes might be lower in Virginia, but you have to think about all the other taxes that you're going to have to deal with by living in the Commonwealth. I remember talking to a gentleman and he was like, he moved from New York and he's like, what the heck is this? Like, I didn't know every 6 months I was going to have to cough up taxes for my car. And he said, and I have 2 cars. I was like, really? So if you see me looking down, it's because I'm looking at my notes. So I just want to make sure that I'm 100% accurate so you guys are making an informed decision. So DC has a graduated individual income tax. So the rates vary from 4% to 10.75%. That's a lot of money. That's like tithe. As a matter of fact, that's more than tithing because God only gets 10%. We've given DC more money than we've given Jesus. 10.75%. 4% to 10.75%. That's a lot of money. So think about almost 11% of your money going right to income taxes. That's crazy. This is in DC, by the way. And then of course, DC has a 6% sales tax and 8.25% corporate income tax. Now let's compare that to Virginia, to the Commonwealth of Virginia. Virginia's state income taxes are 2%, 3%, 5%, and 5.75%. So at the most, you're paying under 6%. Compare that to, again, almost 11% in DC. Virginia also has one of the lowest sales taxes in the country, in the United States. So that's something that you have to consider as well. So from the tax perspective, even though Virginia has the personal tax, the personal property tax, I think Virginia wins this one. If you want your money, you want your bucks to go farther. So that's for the taxes. Let's talk about walkability. This is extremely important because, as I mentioned earlier, some people are moving here for jobs, but there are other people who are moving here for university. They're going to college. And a lot of them don't have cars. This is not New York. Let me just tell you, the DMV, DC, Maryland, Virginia, this is not New York City. Okay, for me, you're going to need a car if you're going to be living in Virginia. There are areas in Virginia, like parts of Arlington, Alexandria, especially Old Town, where honestly you don't need a car. It's very walkable and it's beautiful. But if you're going to be living like out in the sticks somewhere, you're going to be living in like anywhere past Alexandria, Arlington, you're going to be living in Fairfax, you need a car because public transportation is busha. It is horrible in Virginia. DC is much better. It has the metro, so you're going to have access to so many different metro stations. And of course, DC isn't that big. So you'll be fine. It's way more walkable than Virginia. So definitely, again, DC wins this one as it relates to walkability. Let's talk about traffic. So let's just say you do decide to get a car, which even though I'm in DC and it is more walkable than Virginia, I still do have a car. Let me tell you, traffic is absolute garbage in both places. But Virginia, I think Virginia is going to edge out DC. Virginia's traffic is an absolute nightmare on Elm Street. You do not want any part of that. Oh, and don't let a car be stalled on the highway or there's like a fender bender. It's like these people are so nosy, so they're always slowing down and it just jacks traffic up majorly. It's like once you get past the accident, you're like, that's what everybody was slowing down for? Like, really? So traffic in DC is bad, but I think Virginia is going to edge it out. It's horrible. So if you get a car, which you're going to need if you go to Virginia, just be prepared for that. So DC wins this one. I know there are some people who are going to disagree, but I say DC for the win on that one. So take that, DC. Take that, take that, take that. When it comes to healthcare, I would say there's going to be a two-way tie between Virginia and Washington, DC. Both places have top-notch hospitals and medical facilities. It's really, really good. The majority of my doctors and dentists are in Virginia. Some fantastic doctors are in Virginia. And the reason for that too is just like more on the practical side. For me, I don't want to pay for parking in DC, and the parking is garbage because it's such a small space and there's so many people who are living here in DC. It's so hard to find like street parking. It really is tough. If you do, you like count your blessings, because the parking garages make a lot of money off of motorists just because there's just nowhere to park. And you can be paying like $20, some places $25 a day. So I'd prefer to go to Virginia to a hospital or to a doctor because there's more than likely 9 times out of 10 you're going to find parking. You know what I mean? You're going to find parking. So that's, you know, that's something to consider. But as far as the doctors, you're going to have the best of both worlds in both DC and Virginia, top-notch medical facilities. You will not be unhappy about that. So there's a tie there as well. Let's talk about social life. I feel like DC probably can be more compared to New York City when it comes to the social life, especially nightlife. The nightlife in the city is really nice. There's always some place to go. There's always some hot new restaurant opening up. And you will always see people in the streets. So that kind of reminds me of New York. There's always somebody walking the streets. There's always somebody going to the monuments at night. Virginia is absolutely gorgeous, beautiful, breathtaking. And I think I said in an old video that I did a year or two ago that when I was growing up in the Bahamas, when I would see images on TV about America, I think what I was more in love with was the look of Virginia, because that's what like the cobblestone, especially like in Old Town, Alexandria, like that's what my image of America was. And so Virginia is just absolutely breathtakingly beautiful. I love it. No matter where I've traveled, I've always been in awe of that place. But let me tell you something. Let's not sleep on Washington at all, because DC has some beautiful monuments. And I know some people just overlook it because they see it every single day, but they really are some kind of special. They're spectacular, especially at nighttime when they're illuminated. It's just you cannot believe that you live here. I know every time I'm driving, especially at nighttime, and I see the Washington Monument, I'm like, I cannot believe I live here. It's just so beautiful. But as far as the social life, nightlife, you're definitely going to have access in DC to a lot of clubs, a lot of restaurants and bars. There's comedy clubs where they're doing improv. There are theaters. It's just so much to do. I feel like Virginia has some of that, but mostly in the Arlington, Alexandria area. And if you're from Virginia, like Richmond, please don't kill me because I've never been to Richmond, so I can't speak on that. But I'm speaking more of like the Arlington, Fairfax, Alexandria area. They do have things to do, but I think DC edges them out as far as nightlife. That's my personal opinion. Do you know the state where you're most likely to be robbed? If you said California, you're wrong. If you said New York, you're wrong. If you said Illinois, you're wrong. It's DC. That's where you're most likely to be mugged. Let's talk about crime because that's extremely important. People want to know that if they're moving to the area and choosing between Virginia and DC, that they're going to a place that is safe, particularly if they're moving here as a single person or they're moving here with a small family with children. You don't want to be somewhere where you feel like every single day I have to kind of like watch over, look over your shoulder. So I totally get that. And if that's the case, then you definitely do not want to move to DC. You want to move to Virginia. I worry about crime 90 times more in DC than I do in Virginia. When every single day I'm watching the news, somebody's being shot, there's a carjacking, there's some sort of robbery. It's just nuts. It's like, I would definitely give it to Virginia for being much safer. So let me just give you some stats here. So Virginia has been ranked among some of the safest states in the country. Let's just get that out of the way. US News, for example, listed Virginia in the top 10 of the lowest crimes in all states. And if you compare that with DC, shoot 'em upville, bang 'em upville, it's a stark difference, because in DC, according to FBI data, DC has the highest, or one of the highest, crime rates in America. And I read that your chances of being a victim of property crime, 1 in 24. That's high as hell. I also want to say that if you are a woman or someone who is vulnerable, and when I say vulnerable, I mean if you may be differently abled and you need assistance, that sort of thing, I wouldn't move too far out. I really wouldn't move to Virginia. Even though I consider that to be a much safer, and not I consider, the stats support it to be much safer than DC, you still don't want to be too far away from where most of the people are. You definitely want to be closer in the city. So if that is your scenario, you definitely don't want to go out in the sticks somewhere. Let's talk about the natural beauty between the two places. And of course, this is my opinion. Everybody has their own opinion. There are people from DC who are just like, DC is prettier than Virginia. Virginians are like, Virginia's much prettier. I think it's a tie, with an edge being given to Virginia. I've said on this channel before that I'm an earth sign. I love nature. I love plants. I love trees. I love little streams and mountains. I just love it all. And I get most of that from Virginia. It's bigger, has a bigger terrain. So there's much more to look at. But every now and then I'll find myself in an area in DC where I am just absolutely blown away by its beauty. And I'm like, wait, this is in my backyard? I can't believe it. So I'm definitely going to give it a tie, because they're both beautiful, with an edge to Virginia. Tie, but with an edge to Virginia, which I know someone's gonna say, then that's not a tie. But it is, but it's not. And I'm gonna leave it at that. Let's talk about gas prices. Again, if you have a car, this is gonna be very important. As a matter of fact, if you move to this area, you're gonna remember me. You're gonna remember this video, because you're gonna say, this Bahamian gal, Rogan, said this, she told me this and I didn't listen. Gas tends to be much cheaper in Virginia than in DC. I live in DC, and I will pass every gas station unless you see I am hard on E or Elizabeth. That's the only way that I will go to a gas station in DC. I will make my way to Maryland, or I'll make my way to Virginia to fill up. That's that. Now, there are parts of Virginia that are more on the wealthy side, so that I've found that their gas prices tend to be a little higher, but still not comparing to DC. I don't know what these people will be on. For example, the other day, well, I shouldn't say the other day, this was a few weeks ago. I think my gas was like a little over $3 in Virginia, and down the street in DC, it was like $4.49. Where? Who paying that? So it's like, if you're trying to fill up, and I drive an SUV, so that takes some gas, okay? Who filling up in DC? Not I. So definitely consider that when you are moving to the area. Now, it doesn't matter where you live. You could just drive to Virginia like I do to fill up. But sometimes you just want to be able to go right down the street and not have to go over a bridge somewhere, or drive out of your area just to fill up. So just fill up. If you're gonna live in DC, just fill up in Virginia, or fill up in Maryland. We'll talk about that in the Maryland video, but they wildin' with these gas prices in DC. I don't know who they ain't got money around here. Not me. Moving on. Let's talk about diversity of the two places. And it's always another thing. There's always a chopper or something up in DC. I don't hear the choppers so much in Virginia. I gotta get out of here. Anyway, wait, let him pass. You going? Let me pause this. So let's talk about diversity. That's incredibly important to so many people who are moving into the area. And this is not for some political correctness thing. Like, there are people who are moving from countries where most of the people look like them, or they're moving from cities where there's like a melting pot. And so they want to know that wherever they're moving, the people, kind of look like them, or, there's a good mixture so they can feel comfortable. So let's first start off with the disparities as far as the population. So DC, of course, is much smaller, significantly smaller than Virginia. So the population is 671,803. This is according to the US Census, the last census. And so that's under 700,000. 45.9% of the population identify as only white, just solely white. 45.9%. Right behind that number is 45.8%. And those people are Black alone. They identify as Black or African American. Then 11.5% identify as Hispanic or Latino, 11.5%, and then 4.5% identify as Asian alone. There are, of course, other breakdowns, but I felt like these are typically the groups that most people focus on because they represent the larger numbers. If you want to see a complete breakdown, please consult the U.S. Census. Now let's compare that to Virginia. 8,657,003. Why is this helicopter coming? What did I tell you guys? Here he Y'all looking for some dope boys or something? Let me stop this again. This is getting on my nerve. Yeah, that's another thing. So if you don't want to hear a bunch of choppers, move to Virginia. Anyway, as for Virginia, the population is 8,657,365. So 8.6 million people are in Virginia. 68.8% identifies white alone. Compare that to DC, where it's 45.9%, and they are neck and neck with Blacks. So almost 70% of the population of Virginia are white. So if you're more comfortable with just white people, you might want to just move to Virginia. Just saying. I'm not judging you, just saying that might be your thing. 20% of the population of Virginia identify as Black. 10.2% identify as Hispanic or Latino. So that's less fewer than, of course, DC. And 7.2% identify as Asian alone. So there are more Asians in Virginia than in DC. There are more Hispanics in DC than Virginia. There are more Blacks in DC, and there are more whites in Virginia. So that's an interesting breakdown and something to consider. Let me also say that in the Arlington, Alexandria area, you're going to see a lot of Hispanics. To me, that 10.2%, these are the people who definitely participated in the census. The Black people, 20%, I could believe that. Asian, yeah. But I see so many Hispanic or Latino people in both places, DC and Virginia, but especially Virginia, especially in Arlington, especially in Alexandria. So that's a good thing. All right, so definitely consider that. I definitely feel that DC is more of a melting pot. In Virginia, you do see different types of people, but you overwhelmingly see more white people in Virginia, and there's nothing wrong with that, of course, but just letting you know, because let's be real, some people are more, sometimes when we're talking, we think, oh, Black people will be more comfortable this way, and so that's why they're more focused on the diversity. But there are some white people who are more comfortable being around people who look like them as well, and that's not to be discounted. So if that's something that you prefer, then Virginia definitely is the place to be. Moving right along, as far as living accommodations, a lot of people are like, which one is more expensive? There's been, I feel like, a significant uptick in the cost of apartments and condos due to, this is me, and I haven't researched this part of it, due to Amazon's headquarters being in Virginia. I just feel like I was looking at apartments, I just felt like they were just kind of like going up, you know what I mean? DC always, in my mind, edged out Virginia when it comes to the price of apartments and houses. But now Virginia is just kind of gaining ground unless you go super far out. I find that most people will, if they're really trying to pinch pennies, stay in Virginia more so than DC. But that's, again, not to say that Virginia has cheap housing, because it doesn't. You can be paying a significant amount of money in rent in both places. But I think you have a greater chance at finding something in your budget in Virginia just because of the mere fact that it's a much larger space. DC is very small. It's the best way I could describe it is like Manhattan. So, you have like finite resources, finite space. And so people can charge whatever the heck they want to charge, and someone's going to pay it. But if you aren't trying to spend a lot of money, definitely go to Virginia and commute to DC. Again, this was not to say one place is better than the other, but just to give you the options. I wish I could speak authoritatively on schools. I don't have children, and so that's not been my focus to look about, to check on the schools. If that's something you're really interested in knowing, like I have children and I want to know, then you can do your independent research, or I'll consider maybe doing a video on like the best schools you might want to send your kid to. But I have to see if there's an appetite from the viewers for that. But that's pretty much it. I hope that this will help you to make a more informed decision. Like I said, next week I'm going to be delving into DC versus Maryland, because I think there's some great disparities between the two places, and I think you really want to watch that video. So be sure to tune in next week, Wednesday at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. In the meantime, don't forget to give my video a big thumbs up. That's to say you like it. Drop comments down below. Let me know if you agree or disagree. Go right ahead. I'm always interested to hear what you have to say. Subscribe to my channel. That's very important. Let's get those numbers up, 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 up. And of course, you can follow me on my blog at www.thisbahamiangyal.com. And of course, you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook at the same handle, This Bahamian Gyal. I love you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you, and I will see you next week. Bye. Mwah. And if you're trying to avoid them choppers, stay out of DC.